The Good Alpha Part 7. Chapter 54. The Hunt for Marcus. Lucas had been tracking Marcus for hours, following the faint trail of fear and desperation that lingered in the air. He knew Marcus was hiding, but Lucas's senses were on high alert, and he could smell the traitor's fear. Lucas's eyes scanned the surroundings, his ears perked up, listening for any sign of movement. He knew Marcus was desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. Lucas was counting on it. As he moved through the forest, Lucas's mind flashed back to all the times Marcus had betrayed him. The memories fueled his anger and determination. He would not let Marcus get away with his treachery. Lucas's pace quickened, his senses on high alert as he closed in on his prey. Chapter 55. The Hiding Place. Marcus cowered in the darkness, his heart racing with every creak and groan of the old building. He thought he had escaped, but the sound of footsteps outside his hiding place told him otherwise. Marcus's eyes darted back and forth, searching for an escape route, but he was trapped. He knew Lucas was relentless, and he would stop at nothing to exact his revenge. Marcus's mind was consumed by fear and panic. He thought about trying to sneak past Lucas, but he knew it was futile. Lucas was too smart, too determined. Marcus was trapped, and he knew it. The sound of footsteps grew louder, and Marcus's heart sank. It was over. Chapter 56. The Confrontation. Lucas stood outside the door, his voice low and menacing. "Marcus, it's over. Come out and let's end this." The words hung in the air, and Lucas waited for Marcus's response. He knew Marcus was cornered, and he would likely fight back. Lucas's eyes locked onto the door, his muscles tense, ready to pounce. He could hear Marcus's ragged breathing, and he knew the traitor was on the other side. Lucas's voice was cold and unforgiving. "You can't hide forever, Marcus. It's time to face the consequences." Chapter 57. The Coward's Plea. Marcus trembled, his voice shaking as he begged for mercy. "Lucas, please. I'll do anything, just spare me." Marcus's words were laced with desperation, but Lucas was unmoved. He had seen Marcus's true nature, and he knew the man was incapable of loyalty or honor. Lucas's response was cold and unforgiving. "You've had your chance to make things right, Marcus. Now it's time to face the consequences." Lucas's words were final, and Marcus knew he was doomed. Chapter 58. No Mercy. Lucas's eyes were cold and hard as he gazed at Marcus. He felt no pity for the traitor, only contempt. Marcus had brought this upon himself, and now he would have to face the consequences. Lucas's voice was devoid of emotion as he said, "You've made your bed, Marcus. Now it's time to lie in it." With that, Lucas closed the distance between them, his movements swift and deadly. Chapter 59. The Final Confrontation. Marcus emerged from the shadows, his eyes wild with fear. Lucas stood tall, his eyes locked on the traitor. The air was thick with tension as the two enemies faced off. Marcus knew he was beaten, but he refused to go down without a fight. He snarled, baring his teeth, and launched himself at Lucas. But Lucas was ready. With a swift and decisive movement, he took Marcus down, ending the traitor's reign of terror once and for all. Chapter 60. The Showdown. The battle between Lucas and Cale was intense, with both men exchanging blows and neither gaining the upper hand. Lucas's determination and rage fueled his attacks, but Cale was a formidable opponent. The two enemies clashed, their movements lightning fast. Lucas's eyes locked onto Cale's, and he could see the desperation there. Cale knew he was running out of options, and he would stop at nothing to retain his power. Chapter 61. The End of Cale. With a swift and decisive blow, Lucas ended Cale's reign of terror. The pack was finally free, and Lucas stood tall, victorious. He looked out over the pack, his eyes filled with a newfound sense of purpose. Lucas knew he had a long road ahead of him, but he was ready to lead. He would guide the pack to a brighter future, one where they would be free to live their lives without fear of Cale's tyranny. Chapter 62. The Return to the Pack. Lucas made his way back to the pack, his heart filled with a sense of pride and purpose. He knew he had done what was necessary, but he also knew that the real challenge lay ahead. As he approached the pack, Lucas could see the uncertainty in their eyes. They didn't know what to make of him, but Lucas was determined to show them. He would lead them with strength and wisdom, and together they would build a better future. Chapter 63, The New Beginning. The pack looked to Lucas for guidance, and he vowed to lead them to a brighter future, one where they would be free to live their lives without fear of Kale's tyranny. Lucas stood tall, his eyes locked on the future, and he knew that he would do everything in his power to protect his pack. The pack began to stir, their voices whispering in agreement. They knew they had a long way to go, but with Lucas at the helm, they felt a sense of hope they hadn't felt in years. Chapter 64, The Future. The pack's future looked bright, and Lucas was determined to make sure it stayed that way. He would protect them with his life, and he would do everything in his power to ensure their safety and happiness. As the pack began to settle into their new life, Lucas couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had done what was necessary, and he had emerged victorious. But he knew that the real challenge lay ahead, and he was ready to face it head-on. Chapter 65, The New Leader. Lucas stood tall, his eyes locked on the pack. He knew he had a lot to learn, but he was willing to do whatever it took to lead the pack to greatness. The pack looked up to him, and Lucas was determined not to let them down. With a newfound sense of purpose, Lucas began to lead the pack towards a brighter future, one where they would be free to live their lives without fear and where they could thrive under his leadership. Chapter 66, The Legacy. Lucas's legacy was just beginning, and he knew that he would do everything in his power to make sure the pack prospered under his leadership. He would lead them with strength and wisdom, and he would protect them with his life. The pack's future was bright, and Lucas was determined to make sure it stayed that way. He would face challenges head-on, and he would do everything in his power to ensure the pack's safety and happiness. Chapter 67, The New Era. A new era had begun for the pack, and Lucas was at the helm. He would lead them to greatness, and he would do everything in his power to protect them. The pack's future was bright, and Lucas was excited to see what the future held. As the pack looked to Lucas for guidance, he stood tall, his eyes locked on the future. He knew that he would face challenges, but he was ready. He was ready to lead the pack to greatness, and he was ready to face whatever came their way. Chapter 68, The Beginning. The beginning of a new era had dawned, and Lucas was ready to lead the pack into the future. He stood tall, his eyes locked on the horizon, and he knew that he would do everything in his power to make sure the pack prospered under his leadership. The future was bright, and Lucas was excited to see what it held.